Hello, everyone. On behalf of the AAE Board of Directors, it's my pleasure to welcome you to another webinar hosted by the American Association for Employment in Education as we continue to support pre-K through 12 educator preparation, recruitment, and retention. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, New Teacher Talk. My name is Tim Newbert and I serve as AAE's Executive Director. Please allow me to cover just a few housekeeping matters before we begin. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available to AAE members as well as non-members who registered. Attendees are encouraged to post any questions, comments, or feedback using the Q&A or chat features within Zoom. If you or your organization do not yet have AAE membership, please visit our website, aaee.org, to learn more about our activities and resources. We are a professional association intent on positively impacting education through professional connections, connecting the three critical groups involved with the preparation, recruitment, and retention of pre-K-12 educators, that being university professionals and others who prepare and support educators, school system professionals and others who recruit, hire, and retain them, and of course, educator candidates themselves. Joining me for today's webinar are Dr. Beth Wilkins and Dr. Anna Quinzio-Zafran, creators of the New Teacher Talk podcast, along with 4 early career teachers from throughout the United States. Thank you all for being here today. We look forward to learning about your experiences, as well as your insights, any insights you can share with others in the education community. I'll now turn it over to you, Dr. Beth.
Thank you, Tim, for this opportunity. We're very excited to be here tonight with our panelists that are very skilled, representing, as you mentioned, Tim, different parts of the country. We have the West Coast, the East, the South, and the Midwest represented. As Tim alluded to, Dr. Ann and I are co-founders of the New Teacher Talk. We both are professional educators. Myself, a recently retired faculty member from higher education, professor emeritus. I'm a podcaster, podcast editor, and a lifelong teacher educator. So I'll let Anna introduce herself as well. Dr. Anna?
Thank you, Dr. Beth. I'm Anna Quinzio-Zafran, and I am a retired primary teacher. And presently, I work in teacher education and work hard on the New Teacher Talk podcast, and am excited to support new teachers so that they can come into the profession feeling that it is a sustainable one for them to be part of.
Well, thank you for the introductions up to this point. Let's get to our panelists because they bring such rich talent to this conversation. Members and individuals who are joining this particular webinar are very interested in learning about what those who are new to the profession are thinking about with regard to recruiting new teachers and retaining them. So I'm going to go around and ask everyone to introduce him or herself, share your name, what's your licensure area, and anything else you think is important for our listeners today to know about you. So I'll just start alphabetically, and I will start with Bianca, please. Bianca.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bianca Tolentino. I am currently teaching in LA Unified. I have been teaching for 3 years, and I have now taught 9th grade all 3 years because I am, in fact, a young teacher with a lot of verve that can apparently withstand 9th grade teaching. So this has been a lot of fun.
Thanks for being here, Bianca. Thanks for representing the west part of the country. Next would be Blake. He's representing the southern part of the United States.
Good evening. My name is Blake Reddick. I am a middle school social studies teacher at Phoenix High School. The fun fact of that is I graduated from Phoenix High School in 2017, and so I'm a product of the school where I am employed.
You'll learn more about each of these presenters as we go along. So feel free to fill the chat if you have some questions or specifically want to probe about something that we haven't asked about or to go deeper with the topics. Well, Kelsey, would you introduce yourself, Kelsey?
Hi, I'm Kelsey LoPresto. I'm currently a 4th grade teacher in the East Aurora Union Free School District. I'm in a co-taught setting right now, which I love so much. And I'm so happy to be here. So thank you.
And Kelsey is representing the East Coast, in particular, the state of New York. So thanks for being here. And last but not least, Melina representing the Midwest, Melina Hernandez.
Hello, good evening. My name is Melina Hernandez-Jimenez. I have a bachelor's in elementary education and a master's in curriculum and instruction with an ESL and bilingual endorsement. I was working as a second grade Spanish content area teacher for 6 years, and this year I actually moved closer to home, and now I'm a 4th and 5th grade EL co-teacher working in 4 different classrooms, 1 instructional, 1 collab, and the other 2 general. And I also have a 2nd grade intervention group, so I have the best of all the worlds.
And you had to do morning duty as well in the rain today,
Yes, and I was directing traffic today.
So we've had lots of crazy weather in the Midwest. So I'm sure you've had lots of traffic days that have been busy ones. So now that we've gotten to know a little bit about our panelists tonight, I'd like to ask you, why did you choose education as a career? And I'm going to be strategic here too, and I'm going to take the next step, and I'm going to start with Bianca this time. Again.
So I chose teaching as a career. I mean, I feel like I knew that I wanted to be a teacher from a really young age. When I first moved to the United States, I was about 4th grade, and I knew that the classroom was a place where I felt really comfortable kind of learning about my new environment, the new place that I'm living. So I felt like all of the teachers that I've had in my life have been a really great role model. And I thought, well, I would want to be that kind of person for somebody else one day. But it wasn't until high school that I figured out that I wanted to teach English, because I was helping my mom write letters to HR after they had a situation happen at work where all of the employees were about to report their boss, and none of them knew the language. None of them were native English speakers and writers. And as I was sitting there as a 10th grader correcting all of these letters, and I'm so upset because I'm like, my mom is making me do this. And then it clicked. I'm like, oh, because nobody taught them. Like, nobody's explicitly taught them how to do letter write or learn how to write in this language. And I knew that if I could present opportunities like that in the classroom for my students, then I would want to give them any and every advantage possible in using that language as power.
That's wonderful. So it's interesting that you came to education through helping and noticing something. Kelsey, how about you? How did you decide to become a teacher?
Well, when I was a kid, I really thought I wanted to be a mathematician or a scientist or something along those lines. But when I was in high school, I played lacrosse, and there was this one time where we worked with the modified team, and somebody who was really good on my team told me, "You should really work with children. You're really good at this." And that kind of planted the seed for me. I'd never really considered that for myself. And then I started to get involved in more things during high school. Like, I choreographed or helped choreograph the junior high musical and do things along that line, working with students that were younger than me. And I realized that that was something I had a lot of passion for, and it just led me to this place.
And it's so rewarding to be a helper to anyone and to be able to see that you have that kind of impact
Yeah, it
on
was really
someone
nice.
else. Yes. Thank you. I'm going to go to Melina. How did you end up being a teacher?
So I as well, like Bianca and Kelsey, knew from a young age that I liked helping people. I think what really drove me into education was my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Gentile. I came here when I was 5 as an immigrant. So not a lot of teachers looked like me. Not a lot of teachers had the same background as me. And Miss Gentile didn't. She didn't look like me. She didn't have the same background as me, but she made me feel like I was part of her classroom, like that was the second home. And she never once told me that I couldn't speak Spanish, which, believe it or not, I was told many times before, do not speak Spanish, you have to speak English, even though I didn't know any of it, right? So she just really made me feel so welcomed, and I carry that memory. And the way she made me feel, the way she made me feel like I could do anything, I wanted to be that. I wanted to be that representation for future students so they could have a teacher that looks like them, that they could have a teacher that connects with them and their struggles, but also a teacher that would give them that safe home like she gave me.
And I hope that she knows that she's made this kind of impact on you and that you're carrying her practice on in your own.
So she does. Funny tidbit, she was my mentor teacher in the exact same classroom. So it was the whole circle. It was amazing. So she was my mentor teacher, and it just it made it that much more worth it. It was like I knew I chose the right path once I saw that she was my mentor teacher when I student taught.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Melina. And I think Blake is going to bring a similar kind of story to us tonight. Blake?
This is very similar. Since a kid, I always knew I was going to be a teacher from Sunday school and grade school, helping my peers out or helping my Sunday school teacher sum up a lesson. Or so, since a kid, I always knew I was going to be a teacher in the field of education.
That's wonderful.
You know, it's interesting that all of our experiences can be very similar and they can be very different as well. We've had the similar experience of thinking about and going through the job search, at least initially. I know at least one of you is in the process of looking for a new position. So when we think about the job search, and we know that AAE is very interested, their members are very interested in learning more about your experiences and what were the factors that you considered when you went to apply for your first teaching job. So instead of calling on anyone in particular, I'm just going to throw that out there, and whoever wants to respond, we'll just go in that order. How's that?
So for me, I know I had a little bit of a different. Oh, sorry, Blake. I'm sorry.
You can go ahead. I was going to ask her to repeat the question when you're finished.
Oh, okay. So for me, my job search was a little bit unique because as soon as I went to apply, I put in the comments that I had a second language. So I didn't even finish an application, and someone had already called me from from South Holland, District 151, because they had seen that I had put Spanish. So they kind of pulled me in, and as a new teacher, I was so nervous about going to these interviews, and I was just terrified, but they were kind of just selling it to me at that point. They're like, we have these resources, this would be your classrooms, we offer tuition reimbursement, like the school pays for your insurance, and as a new teacher, it's like, wait, what? You're gonna pay for me to continue school and you're going to give me insurance for free? I was sold. So for me, it was I didn't have to go through a lot of interview processes because of my language. So I do feel like I was lucky in that sense. But some of the things that did drive me to go into that district, even though it was 45 minutes away from my house, was the fact that they had this list of resources that they would offer me if I took the job. So I know that that was definitely a selling point for me.
So resources are pretty important. I want to reframe the question so we're clear too, because that was a factor that you strongly considered, Melina, and that really fits the question pretty well. So what factors did each of you consider when you were going through your job search? And you talked about resources, Melina. What about the other three?
So my story is a little different because, as you know, I returned to my alma mater to teach. So with me, it wasn't no career fair. It was just like, oh, Blake, we always knew since a kid you was going to be a teacher. So since you're finishing the field education, or why not come back and teach? And so they didn't have to sell me too much because I knew the district already, I knew the school already. So it was more like I'm just returning back home.
Lovely. Did you do any of your field experiences there, Blake?
No, so through some of my organizations, I did field experiences at other schools where around surrounded by Southern University in Baton Rouge.
Very good. Thank you. Kelsey, Bianca, would you like to speak to the factors that led to your job search and what you considered?
Yeah, sure. I went to college really close to home, so a lot of my field experience and teaching, student teaching, was really close by to my college, but also to my parents. And so I think I started off just wanting to be really close to family. So looking in that general area. And then when I student taught in a nearby district, I kind of just fell into that district and started to sub right off the bat. So I think mostly just proximity to family was a big factor for me.
You know, that's a big research point, Kelsey. They've done a lot of national studies about where people go in taking their teaching positions, and most people stay within close proximity to where they grew up, so or family, which fits perfectly with your story. Bianca, what factors did you consider? You're in the LA, you're out in LA, so that's a big district. It's kind of like Chicago.
It is a
Whew, I know it.
huge district.
Yeah, it's an
It
understatement.
feel like there's, I mean, like second largest district in the country. There's so many bodies in the room. Well, I mean, I'm currently thinking about this question because I am looking for another position soon, kind of because of life circumstances. I know that just like Kelsey, I'm looking for somewhere closer to home. And right now, driving about an hour to LA is really rough. But the other things that I've noticed too, because I had an opportunity to substitute teach and go into classrooms, I've really noticed and that I really value when I can see how the schools are supporting the teachers and how the teachers get to interact with each other. I know that at my current school, one of the things that I really liked while I was student teaching is I got to see how all of the teachers interacted and were so open to sharing their resources, or were talking to each other about, oh, like if you need help with this thing, or if you want me to work with some of your students. I just saw that people were really excited to be with each other, and in a um in a career that's really isolating, because you're in a room with kids all day. It's really that community that I look for, and that I think I am looking for as I'm searching. I really hope to find another place where I have that connection with my colleagues.
I like your response. You know, school culture is so critically important. How you feel in that building. Is it supportive? What's the professional development amongst between like-minded colleagues amongst the whole building itself? If it's a large building or it's a smaller building, there's a lot to be said about that, Bianca. I applaud you for that. I know Blake telling his story about returning to his home school. He knows that there's a good environment there, a great environment there, a supportive environment. So, and I know in the chat it just came up, Bianca's looking for positions. So all of you that are here on the webinar or maybe listening to it after the fact, she's looking for a job and she comes with high regards. So there you go. Pitch for you, Bianca.
And I have to laugh. I have a little postscript to that story. I got my job because the superintendent called my mom and said, I hear Anna is going to be graduating in the spring. Do you think she'd be interested in a third grade position? So there you go. I didn't interview at all, although I negotiated to get to first grade instead. Which takes us to our next question. When you were planning your job search, how did you really decide where you wanted to apply? How did you go about the process of looking at schools that you were interested in? What was your plan? And I'm just going to leave it open to whoever would like to answer.
I don't think I started off with a plan. I think I started to just apply to nearby schools. And then I really wanted to sub in those districts and kind of get a feel. I know Bianca mentioned the school culture. That was something that was really important to me too. And as I kept looking and subbing in these different districts, I don't necessarily want to say I was ruling out districts, but I kind of figured out my path and what I wanted in a culture and what I wanted through a school and the support systems as I was subbing.
Subbing can be a really helpful way to start to get a picture of the possibilities of places that maybe you've narrowed your search down to. So anyone else with their plan? What was your plan of finding your position?
So for me, when I decided to leave my old district, I did it because I had a family and I needed to be closer to home. So that was one of the biggest things, just how close it was. But after teaching in Spanish for such a long time, I knew that I wanted a position where I would still be able to use my language. So when I did look for jobs, I did look for something where I would be able to use my language, which is Spanish. So that's how I ended up in South Hollis, not South Holland, sorry, North Palos now, as a bilingual EL teacher supporting these students. So I know that that was a big factor for me. Like I wanted to use my language. And also I looked at the school report card just to kind of see the demographics of like the student population, the teacher population, the education levels, and just overall, like just kind of get an overview of the school and what I should expect when I came.
It is important to do your research. Anyone else want to speak to this question?
Yeah, I mean, I know that another big factor is that with LA Unified, they had a really great benefits package. And I was just like, well, I have to think long term as well. You know, a little bit about the compensation for it. And going back to even what Melina was saying about the SARC, like the school report cards, I remember looking through it and seeing, you know, are the schools getting the support that they need, or what kind of students are there? Is this the kind of population that maybe reflects who I am as a teacher, or is this the kind of population I'd love to serve? And right now I get to be with a lot of students that some of them look like me, some of them don't look like me. And it feels really good to know that like I will be in a like for looking for a spot, that I'd be looking for places where even if the demographic of students don't look like me, even now, like I get to connect with those students individually, and you know, be a person in the room that can be the you know, like mirrors and windows, like a window to a different perspective and all of those things. So I remember also looking at that during the job search.
Thank you, Bianca.
I'm curious to know if any of you attended a career fair, why or why not? Because I know a lot of people go to career fairs, and a lot of people who are looking for teachers will go and set up a table at career fairs. What were your experiences in that area, please?
At undergrad, I went to career fairs, but there weren't that many schools that were present. It was like one or two. But once you did your
Oh,
research, once you did your research, and like you said, look at the school report card. It's just like, do I really want to go into that environment? Do I really want to be in that situation where I am overworking, that's not really compensated that much, and can my mental health really handle that capacity?
I really like to focus on work-life balance there, Blake, and just overall well-being. You know, we all know teachers that burn it on both ends, and burnout is very real. Trust me, it's really real. So you're looking at your profession as a lifelong profession, but you're also saying, I want to be in a school that kind of represents my values. I feel like I fit in, that people will help me grow professionally, but I need to have that work-life balance and be able to be in a good head and heart, be together there. So thank you for sharing. Others of you, what were your experiences with career fairs?
I honestly never heard of any career fairs in my time. You know, in my college, I really didn't hear much advertisement for them. Like I never knew. But if I did, and if I did hear or was told about them, I feel like I would have gone. But for me, it was just, I never heard anything about them.
I did not attend any career fairs. I don't think I felt at the time that schools were represented at career fairs. I kind of assumed that career fairs were to figure out what you wanted to do and where you wanted to be, not necessarily for specific school districts to find teachers.
I think I was really lucky because just hearing that, because I know that our my school, my university had an education and specific career fair. I was able to see a lot of different districts, a lot of charter schools as well. And so that's actually where I got to first meet some recruiters for LA Unified and also for Long Beach and some other charters like Green Dot. And so it was really nice seeing what the possibilities were, but also to see, you know, if people are coming out to job fairs, this is who they have to represent. Do I vibe with them? Do I like the people I'm talking to? And do I like what they're showing me?
Absolutely. So, would you say then, Bianca, that were you able to spend lots of time with each of these different area, like each of these schools or charter schools, or was it pretty much just, hey, I would want to teach high school English. What materials do you have for me? Like, what was that dynamic or that conversation generally like?
For the most part, because it wasn't too busy, I know that I got to have a lot of time with people who were tabling. And I didn't have any, like, I knew I wasn't able to sit down and do interviews, but there were a lot of people who were doing on the spot preliminary interviews, which I also thought was really cool because then that skips a part of the process and it makes me feel like they're valuing new teachers coming into the profession and showing we're here to reach out a hand to you. And so that made me feel like there were a lot of people really excited to get new blood into the field.
There you go. Did you take your resume? Did you go and pass out your resumes? Yeah. Same for you, Blake. You said you had gone. Did you take some resumes with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There you go. And are you all traditionally prepared for the class? So in other words, did you go through a traditional teacher ed program or any of you alternatively, did you go through an alternative program? Everybody graduated from a university, in other words? Yes. Okay. All right, great. I think there's some a question there in the chat box. Tim, do you want to read it for us, please? I can see it here. What specific benefits attracted them to certain schools, and what particular aspects of culture were they looking for? I see that in the chat. What specific benefits attracted them? I know there's been some conversation about that and, benefits and support. And what particular aspects of culture were they looking for? Melissa, thanks for that question.
Um, I would say it's crazy because last night I was up reading, and I read something on the way up, and it talked about Generation Z or millennials. We're not very much. We won't stay in a professional field if we don't see growth. We don't see opportunity, and most importantly, if we don't feel appreciated. And so, with me looking for other schools or moving from my school to other schools or to the next level, I'm looking for all three. I want to make sure I have security. I feel secure at my job. I make sure I can be who I am. Making sure that I can grow. If I want to be a department lead, or do I want to go to administration? And do I feel valued at the school or in this district? Do they appreciate what I do and what I offer to the students and to the school body? Hope
Seeing
I
a
answered
lot of
that
heads.
question.
Blake, I see a lot of heads nodding, and I think you could probably see them on your screen too. I think there's a lot of agreement there from your fellow panelists from across the country. So I'm going to throw it open. Kelsey, Melina, Bianca, you want to add to that?
I mean, just like Blake said, right? The only reason why I have my master's is because one of the directors in my previous district, he started a cohort. He wanted more teachers to have their ESL endorsement. So he went out, found a cohort, presented it to the teachers, and they're like, hey, we will pay for your education. We will give you tuition reimbursement if you go and get this degree. And as a new teacher, I feel like we're eager to learn. We're like, what? We can get more, and we can learn them the process, and we're just so eager to take on these things. So I do feel like if it wasn't because of them being like, hey, we got a cohort set up, you're going to be working with your co-teacher, or like your not co-teachers, but like your other co-workers on this degree, we will give you a certain part back. Like, it was such a selling point for me. Like, if they're willing to invest in me, I'm willing to stick around and see where this goes. just also like the community that I was part of. Like I was so close to the family, so that's why I stayed there for so long. Like I stayed there for 6 years. The thing that brought me was a little bit of the burnout. I was getting burned out just with the demands of being a bilingual teacher, and my family, like my kids are growing up, so I had to come closer to home. And then this new district, they have co-teachers in every classroom. So it was like a different change. And I also love working with other teachers. I do feel like when you work with co-teachers, personalities come into play. So one of the things that my principal did this year during my evaluation was like, hey, do you have any input on how this year went? Like, I'm not telling you that I can change you around, but I will like to hear your input on how you work with your co-teachers. Do you see yourself being a good fit with them? Or do you feel like you would see yourself in a different position, like in a different grade level? So she really took the time to like really ask me how I felt, especially because mine was a little different because I had 4 different classrooms. So she really took the time, and that made me feel so appreciative. Like I was just like, wait, what? You're asking me my opinion? So I definitely do feel like I miss my old district, but this new district that I'm part of has just made me feel so welcome. They make me feel heard. And the fact that I get to work with all these teachers, like I have a teacher, if in case there's an emergency, like, hey, I have to go. Can you cover the class for a little bit? So even just having that community of teachers working together and lesson planning together, like I don't have to lesson plan by myself anymore. And that is huge. So I know I did talk a lot about things, but one of the things is just that communication aspect. Like we are human, and even if you can't change my position or who I'm working with, the fact that you ask for my input on how I'm doing and if there's anything you can do, like just it meant the world to me.
Not only asked for your feedback, but they truly listened to you and valued you. That adds on to what Blake said so nicely. Kelsey, Bianca, would you like to add to any of that?
I think when I was subbing, I kind of felt the divide often between the veteran teachers and me as a new person in the district. And I feel like sometimes I was looking for that connection with my coworkers and really, I mean, I know that Blake and Melina talked about this, but just that valued feeling that you get when you are walking around and you can smile with your coworkers and talk to them and plan with them. And I felt like as a new teacher when I was subbing and in my first position, I just didn't feel like I had that connection. And the position I have now, I do have those connections. I could go up to anybody in my grade level. I have a wonderful co-teacher and a wonderful switch teacher. And I just feel like I can call on any of them to help me out and to ask questions. And that just makes a world of a difference for me.
What I'm hearing are, valued colleagues where that collaboration is real, authentic, moving you forward professionally as well.
I mean, just to echo what everybody else is saying, that feeling of being valued, I think with a job like teaching, if I'm going to stay here for the rest of my career, I want to feel like it matters that I stayed here for the rest of my career. One of the things that my current school is doing is they're providing professional development based on what other teachers have been asking for. And so recently I got to co-facilitate one about artificial intelligence in the classroom and how to use it with like other teachers and students. And my principal worked with me about like, well, what are teachers saying that they need? What kind of resources can we provide them? And I got really excited to see that just like how like Melina was talking about that principal to teacher, conversation, like no matter like where in administration they are, like they want to know boots on the ground, what are people asking for? And that's always something that I really like knowing that I have. Is like, oh, like everybody has my back. Like everyone is looking to support and grow where the school is like heading and how we're how we're moving forward with both teachers and students.
So what I'm hearing from all of you is that the culture of your building is so important. So as you are looking for a position, how can you tell what that vibe or that culture is going to be like? How were you able to tell when you interviewed in those positions?
I actually, this was something that my friends and I talked about before we went into interviews. It's like, what questions are we going to ask when they say, do you have any questions? But the two questions that we ended up really going with was, one, what's something you're really proud about with your school? And we noticed that when if the admin goes, oh, like we really like, if they give a really general answer, we're like, maybe they don't know what they're proud about with the school. But then other like feedback I got, especially when I was in group interviews, was when teachers go, oh, I get to collaborate with my colleague just down the hall, or we just started doing this new SEL like growth or opportunity for students. And the more specific an answer I got, the more I felt like the teachers felt connected with the whole school community. And the other question that we asked was, after the pandemic, like everything is so different. So what was a change that you had to make within your school community to accommodate all of the changes that have been happening since post-COVID? And so I felt like those two questions were in our arsenal to see how did the admin and other teachers react when we asked those.
I like that you had opportunities to have some interviews, not just with administrators, but from teachers too. So how does it help to have teachers on an interview panel?
I knew that I liked hearing from teachers. And also it felt good to know that the people who were interviewing me were also the people who are going to work with me. Because they get to really see who I am as an educator. And even though I know administrators have, been in teaching positions before, it's really different when it's somebody who is in the classroom and somebody who knows how they are in the classroom and how they would want a new colleague to be coming in with, whatever personality or ideas that they have.
Thank you. So what supports or resources do you think are really important for a school district to provide for first-year educators so that they can be welcomed into that school and feel that they're an integral part of the staff?
I feel like mentor teachers are huge. I know at my first district, I did not have a mentor teacher. However, I was lucky enough that there was another bilingual teacher. So I kind of just gravitated towards him and was like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And he was very receptive. At my new district, I do have a mentor teacher. However, I don't meet with her as much. So I think also the choosing of mentor teachers is very important. And just because they are like I think she got chosen because she is an EL teacher. However, I don't, that wouldn't be my choice of a mentor teacher. So I think also that's important. So don't just pick someone and be like, hey, who wants to be a mentor teacher? I feel like there has to be a process of like picking right mentor teachers that are going to give those new teachers what they truly need. So that's a huge.
I want to add on to what Melina said. Not only mentor teachers, but a support group of teachers. Teachers who are more flexible within their schedule to go check on the teacher, make sure that the new teacher is welcome, and give them a little brief history of the school. Make sure they understand the culture of the school, culture of the kids. Give them a little information about what they can expect from certain kids or certain teachers, or how does administration move throughout the school year. When do we see the most discipline problems? Which part of the school year? When are we going to see more people from district office come in? Just give them the background knowledge besides just the curriculum side of education.
And also just to build with the culture. Oh, sorry, Kelsey. I know one of the things that we're prone to do is just go navigate to whoever we're working with. So like I'm in 4th and 5th grade. So when I first went to the first institute day, I was like so nervous because I was new, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know who to sit with. So you kind of just gravitate to like the people who you meet or who you're working with directly. And you never get, especially like if it's a bigger school, you don't really get to talk to other people. So I know that one of the nice things from my old district, the principal, he ended up coming with an icebreaker where he broke us up into teams. So kind of like what we do with the students where we're like, here's a random number, pair up. It made such a huge difference because I was able to work with different people and the new teachers. It took that weight of like having to introduce themselves to all these new people. And I was like, here's your group, talk to them. You're finding a scavenger hunt through the school. So not only they're getting a feel for the school, getting to meet new people, but it's also a fun, engaging way rather than just being told, come into, Institute Day, sit wherever you want. And then you have a new teacher who's like in the back corner, like, where do I sit? It does take some of those nerves away. And it really like puts it in the perspective of a student. How would you introduce a new student to your classroom? How would you introduce a new teacher to your school? Build those opportunities to mingle teachers, especially teachers that have been there for such a long time. They're going to stay with their groups. They're going to stay with their friends. So build in those opportunities to create more of a culture and not a lot of the natural tendencies to go with the people we find who are alike.
I was just going to say that I loved the idea of having a support group of teachers. I think sometimes I schedule meetings with my mentor, but I don't necessarily go to her for my daily questions and the things that I have going on right in front of me. So I like the idea that there's a time and a place to have a meeting with somebody, and there's like a specific time that you can share some things, but then day to day, you need that support too. And I also think it's really important to have administrator check-ins that go beyond observations, and just developing those relationships with administrators is critical.
And kind of speaking to the idea of like the different types of support that we need from other teachers, one of the things that I really like doing is when I was just starting out is getting the opportunity to observe veteran teachers in their environments, because getting to see them command a classroom helped me so much in learning, oh, what do I like from their style? What do I not like from their style? Being able to just see them thrive and know that, that's going to be me one day. Like I'm going to be that comfortable and confident all of the time. And it was just really cool to have veteran teachers invite me in to say like, hey, I'm doing this lesson, come in and like observe, so maybe you can try it out a little bit. And so I know that a professor of mine told me you need, not only like longitudinal kind of support, so support from veteran teachers, but also latitudinal. You also need the people who will just sit with you after a long day and be like, wow, that was hard. And so it's really nice that in my hallway, like there's a bunch of different types of experience. And so I know one door down, I have my veteran teacher, the next door is another new teacher. And sometimes, I just got to pick where I got to go. But I know that was a kind of support that I really valued when I first started out, especially.
I'm just curious. We've talked about some really great strategies here. I posted that in the chat. I'm curious to know if there were any particular supports or resources that as new teachers you found particularly helpful. Let's say not at the beginning of the year or in that first semester, but let's say during the second semester, January to May or June, however long your semester went. Were there some resources there or supports that you found particularly helpful those first 1 or 2 years that happen in the second half of the year versus the first half? Observations, I think, could be carried over. So,
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's not always just the curriculum support, but it really is that classroom management. Because as much as our teacher preparation programs help us with knowing the curriculum, the content, I don't know how I'm going to be when there's just a bunch of, there's 30 kids in a classroom. What do I do? How do I do it? And so I think, especially in my second semester, having either admin or our instructional coaches come in and observe and then give us advice based off of the kids that we had, and just saying, hey, I noticed that you have some talkative kids here. Let's harness those strengths and maybe spread them out a little bit, put them into different groups, and just having that back and forth of somebody else, another adult in the classroom, to really strategize on how to manage it. Because we all know once it gets after spring break, oh gosh, like it's the Wild West with testing and behavior and all of that kind of stuff. And so it really becomes like, let's get into this together, and let's help each other out in figuring out how to make our adjustments, our pivots, so that we can all thrive till the end of the year instead of crawl to the end of the year.
Great response. Loved it. Nice stuff. What other strategies? Somebody's asked a question here. If the American Sign Language teachers are the same classrooms, are you working with American Sign Language teachers together for lesson planning and wonderful activities? There's a question here I've jettisoned. I want to respond to the chat. Anybody working with an ASL teacher? No? Okay, sorry about that.
We have another question in the Q&A, and you talked a little bit about this earlier. How important is it to see district office people in your classrooms? Does it make a difference? Do you feel uncomfortable, or do you feel that you want to welcome them in?
I see it from two perspectives. First thing, when kids see someone they don't know, or kids see people that they know are higher up, they tend to tense up and really get quiet. They don't feel comfortable. They don't want to answer questions. They really be nervous. And as a teacher, sometimes it can be kind of scary. Like, what are they looking for? What are they going to get? What will they say? Am I doing good? So it's get very overwhelming, and it's really more overwhelming when they leave out and never give you any feedback. So you don't know how you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. Your kids are kind of looking over their shoulders like, I hope they're not standing behind me. I hope I answered this question correct, or I hope I'm doing this or doing that. So it has its pros and cons to them coming in and observing or just doing a walkthrough.
So would you feel more comfortable if they would say, hey, Blake, I'm going to be stopping around sometime this week. I just want to come in and see the classroom, see your student, see what you're doing, and then come find me and we can talk about, maybe some concerns you might be having.
Yes, but also I understand their tactics are just catching you when you're in your mode. But when you give us a warning, it's just like, okay, well, let me prepare my kids that one day this week we're gonna have a visitor. It's just like that formal observation. Well, the principal's coming this week, so let's be on our best behavior. And then so I would say yes and no. I mean, yes, you can give us that warning, but also it's just like at least come with a welcoming demeanor. Let me put it that way. Come in with a welcoming demeanor. Coming like you want to learn with the kids, not just I come to watch.
Blake, I 100% agree with you. I remember my first year, my superintendent came in. She had her hands behind her back and she's walking around and she's just like this. And I know that like later on, I found out that was just her demeanor and that's just how she was. But like as the first year teacher, they were taking a test too. So some of them, when they were finished, I just let them draw on the back, right? Because it's like, we're taking a quick test, like I'm just gonna let you draw. So then she comes in and she's like walking around and she has a serious face. My heart dropped. I was like, I'm gonna get fired. I'm not gonna get renewed. Like, what's gonna go? Like, what's gonna happen? Right. So yeah, definitely like also the demeanor and also like being yourself, being open to coming into the classroom for fun things as well. I know that during Read Across America, some of the people from district would offer to come and read to the kids. So I know the kids love that. I know the parents really appreciated that as well. And then once we started seeing more of the people from district, like in our family nights or reading nights, it kind of created a sense of security where it's like, oh, they actually just like to be part of their schools rather than just coming in and trying to catch you doing something wrong. So I think that that's a big part of it too. Like, it's nice when we have a warning, but if there is no warning, maybe try to smile and just really focus on that body language, because that body language, I was terrified. And then after that, I never let the kids draw on their test again. I was like, no, do a worksheet. So new teacher, new teacher moments. I was like, oh, they're drawing over here. And she just saw them drawing. And she did it on me twice. And both of the times she came in, they were taking a test. And I'm like, no. So,
So it sounds like maybe administrators need to think about the culture of their moving around the building. And maybe if they come around regularly and maybe say, hey, I'm just here to participate with what you're doing today, maybe that would ease the tension, both from the students that you mentioned, Blake, and from the teachers.
I think it also helps with the just being receptive of their feedback too, and just being more open. I know at some point I let the negativity of other teachers get to me, and I was starting to become a little negative. And because I had such a good relationship with the bilingual director, he had a conversation with me and he was open with me, and he's like, hey, like, this is what I've noticed. This is not you. I just wanted to let you know, like, what's going on. So even just having those genuine connections with people who are from the district or who are, there for you, it makes you more receptive to their feedback. Because if I never saw him in my classroom, if I never had conversations with him, if he never gave me any positive feedback, if he would have just told me, hey, you're negative, like you're becoming a little negative, I would have taken that as like, whoa, like you've never talked to me before and now you're coming at my character. So it would have been a different conversation. So yeah, so again, that culture, that development of relationships, and just being part of the classroom.
I'm watching our time. I'm wondering if we might do a lightning round, Dr. Anna. What about if everybody thinks of their two top like recruiting retention strategies? Think of it that way. So, because the people at AAE are very interested in finding great talent like the four of you. So if you could only narrow it down to two best recruiting and retention strategies of new teachers, what would those two be? Just two. Lightning round. Just
This is good. Very first is money. You have to, especially now in today's where everything is costly. First thing is you have to offer us a good salary, not one that's, I'm not saying a signing bonus, but at least a good salary. That's one recruit to salary. The second one I have to think on it, because this is a pretty good one. Let's think on it.
thanks, Blake. Well, let's keep thinking there. Hey, Bianca, I can see you're jumping at something here. What are
Yeah,
your top?
the water wheel is still spinning, but just kind of to talk, like, just to echo what Blake was saying. I mean, like, yes, compensation, but also I know that like there's planning time outside of work. Am I being compensated for that? Do I get paid time to actually work with my colleagues? So not just like baseline salary, although of course I am looking at that, but do I also get compensated for the fact that I am putting in time, effort, expertise into really making my classroom be the best that it can be? And I think the second one is just, again, like going back to value. Like if I come into a school, if I join a new community, can I make root here? Can I build something here? Will it be supported and sustained? Because if I'm going to put my passions into the place that I'm currently at? Will it be met with the same energy? Like, will I be getting back when I'm giving in?
Wonderful response.
I think that value piece is important. I think if districts advertise themselves as a certain type of district or have a certain type of culture, then that is the culture that is there the whole time that you're there. And that's what you see. You feel that way from the beginning all the way through. And then I also think that putting time and effort into training teachers all that go beyond just, what we've learned in school, but like sending us to trainings and sending us to learn from other professionals and that kind of thing will also keep teachers around.
Invest in a new teacher's growth is what I heard. I believe that's what I heard. Great.
I know one of the things that I had asked for my interview was like, what opportunities do you have? Like, is there opportunities to create after school programs? Is there opportunities to do like summer school or get paid for different jobs? So I know that that was a big thing for me too. Like, what other opportunities do you have outside of the classroom for me? And like Kelsey said, also like, are you going to invest in me? Are you going to be willing to pay for my college, which some of them do? So yeah.
Leadership opportunities is what I also heard there too, Melina. Hey, Blake, you got one more for me? Come on, you got another one.
You said it, leadership opportunities.
Leadership.
Opportunities. Oftentimes, I know for me, oftentimes, a lot of people go through education, go through the classroom because they have something that their end goal is. It's principal, superintendent. And a lot of times we go through these districts, and it's like we get stuck in the classroom. And so I know for me personally, I don't want to be in the classroom next 20 years. I want to move up the ladder, go to principal, assistant principal, superintendent, the collegiate level. So where is there room for leadership and there's there room for growth? Leadership and growth.
They should know that, and they should make those pathways available. Absolutely. Dr. Anna, I'll toss it back to you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Beth. Really, I would just like we are nearing our 60-minute time period, and I would like to thank our 4 panelists, Kelsey LoPresto, Bianca Tolentino, Melina Hernandez-Jimenez, and Blake Reddick for sharing such, and as people in the chat have said, such gold tonight. And I hope that the people that are listening to this webinar are taking your words to heart. We have many, many young people in our country that are so talented and who want to serve and give back to their communities and to help the next generation of young people grow. And we have to invest in them, make them feel welcome and know that they have a place in our schools. And so we want to thank you all tonight. I toss this back to Tim.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Kelsey, Blake, Melina, Bianca, Dr. Beth, Dr. Anna. It's been a true pleasure to host your panel discussion today or this evening. And thank you, attendees and viewers, for joining us. We hope you'll become a regular follower of the New Teacher Talk podcast channel, which aims to help all new teachers. Also, please consider joining AAE's next webinar on April 16th, when elementary school teacher and consultant Leanne DeBella joins us to discuss teacher temperament, how understanding yourself and others elevates job performance and engagement. Registration is now open. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.